Dad always said, you never preach till you start sweating. Well, I'm sweating before I even started, so we're in trouble. Thank you. All right, Luke chapter 22. Luke chapter 22. Take your Bibles and open there. You know, one of the things about snowstorms, when they delay from me as a preacher getting out and preaching, not only here but at Fox's Hollow, all this kind of stuff builds up. Now, I love snowstorms. I am in my season. Maggie's going to kick me in the shin afterwards, but I love for the seasons to be what they are. Fall, I love the beautiful colors. Winter, I love the 3 feet of snow. Springtime, the green grass and nice warm weather makes it all come out. Summer, give me 105 with humidity at 90%. I love the seasons to be what they are, and the beautiful thing about this is that here we get to enjoy that. These other places around the nation and the world, they don't get to enjoy all of that. So I'm very happy that we had our snowstorm. Matter of fact, there's a lot of contention between people that pray for no snow to come versus me. And it's that competition that goes on. I get all kinds of things on Facebook of insults. You did this. Matter of fact, me and my wife, we went down the day it was snowing. She was doing something. I said, you got to hurry up and get back. I said, I got to go to Dairy Queen to get a blizzard, to take a picture of the blizzard during the blizzard. And all the hate mail I got out of that almost matches some of the hate mail I get from preaching. Isn't that all? But one of the things about being in a snowstorm, it does allow for everything to stop. And I think in the middle of winter, that's one of the things I like. I like when things just stop. You don't have to go run. You don't have to do this, do that. And now for those that do, you know, my prayers go with them as they got to travel and get out and activities and things like that. But the opportunity that it gives is get into Word, get in prayer, and let God speak. Now, a couple weeks back, earlier part of January, when I was down in Atlanta, Georgia, at this meeting, one of the rounds of prayer that they have with all these prayer leaders that were there, national church leaders, was on spiritual warfare. Now, I got my own mindset about this, on spiritual warfare, what we're fighting. Now, we're not fighting D.C., we're not fighting governments, we're not fighting the other denomination down the road. We're not. It's not about that. Ephesians chapter 6 is very clear. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and the rulers of the darkness of this world. That's where the battle is for the church. You know, one of the churches I pastored when I was out in Indiana, I had 2 brothers in that church. One sat there and one sat there, and the mother would rotate. One week she'd be on this side behind that son, and the next week that son, and they couldn't get along to save your life. Sitting there in church like that. And the mother was torn because it was her sons, it was her church, but you had that split right down the middle of that. They thought that their battle was each other. That's flesh and blood. That's not where it's at. It's in what Satan is trying to do in his activity that's out there. So when they presented that spiritual warfare prayer time, I thought it was very much lacking in a lot of things that we ought to have been fighting against the kingdom of hell. What we see happening in our nation, what we see happening in our families, what we see happening in schools, what happened in Denver yesterday at their... always you read these horrible headlines and get the news updates. In Denver, Colorado, there was a motorcycle rally or something like that at one of their big stadiums. Stabbing, shootings, people dying, people wounded, senseless things to us that we see. Even in our local area, how much activity is stabbing in Cumberland, other activity going on just this past week, and you see that and you think, boy, it just keeps getting closer and closer home, don't it? This is the activity that we're facing today. Now, as the church, quote this statement, is the church, Titus chapter 2, fighting the good fight of faith. And when I watch someone fight, a boxing match, a wrestling match, you could tell whether they're fighting a good fight. I watch basketball for nonstop, the boys playing and Rebecca playing, and I watch my college teams and that. I can tell whether it's a lackluster effort or whether they've got all their heart in it. You can tell when people come into church. When the way they're singing and the way you all fellowship there, is your heart in it, or are you just going through the motion? Same old, and you die in that. You die with that rut. It's when it becomes alive to you and you say, I can't get enough of this. I got to have more. I'm growing, I'm increasing, and that's what it's all about. So, as I'm studying this and I'm coming through my Bible readings, Luke 22, there was these verses that jumped out at me. God's saying, I'm going to teach you this. I'm going to give you this. Now, since I was indoors, I did do a short video of it for my people that are outside this area and sent it to them, my other prayer partners. I have about 70 prayer partners that are scattered across the United States that I write 2-3 times a month to on the daily prayer email, and they get this of these very things I'm going to talk to you about today, because a lot of them are in places that they don't pray, and they've been burdened with this, and they've got to pray, but they want to learn how to pray. So you set things in front of people. I know one of the things I'd love to do, at some point, probably on a Bible study night we'll do it, is that you pray for the person on your right. Now, if I want to pray for Jonathan, and I don't know a whole lot about Jonathan, just for example, I don't know how to pray for him. So what do I got to do? How can I pray for you, Jonathan? And he says, well, this is what I'm fighting right now. This is what I'm struggling with. This is what's on my heart. This is what's on my mind. And so now I can pray for that because he's told me. You don't know that a lot of times when you come across people. I did a funeral Tuesday. A lady that she would belong to another church, but on Sunday nights over at Augusta, she would come on Sunday night and she was faithful. She grew up down here at Dawson. Some of y'all probably might even know the family in that because she said she knew all of my family. You know how much I've gotten that since I started preaching here? Well, we've heard where you're preaching at now. Even over at work, I had a woman, she said, well, where are you preaching at? And she said, well, I was baptized in that church. I grew up, it's amazing the contacts that I've made just over this last month of being here with you all. And people said, now as soon as this weather breaks, I'm coming. So, that's exciting. That's exciting with that. But this woman, she grew up down here. She went to Bruce. I went to Bruce. But she would come Sunday nights. And I remember every conversation that I had with her. It was never about how's the family, what do you think about this weather. It wasn't no trivial conversation. She was like, I want you to talk to my son. I got to know. She had a special friend that went around with her. I got to know where he's going to spend eternity. She was driven in her mind about eternity. Where are they going to be? And so I had to do the service and the funeral, and so what did I preach? I didn't preach anything else, but your mother wanted this to be said to you. If you don't get right with Christ, you'll never see her again. That's what she prayed, that's what she cried, that's what she lived, that's what she talked about with me. Get ready to meet Christ. But you and I know that the activity of Satan is to get people distracted off of that, isn't it? Keep people from getting right with Christ. You get somebody under conviction, you get somebody on the right path, you get somebody coming to church and they're hearing the gospel and their hearts are moved, and you're looking for them at any moment to give their hearts and their life to Christ, and Satan causes some kind of activity, some kind of event, and it just sucks them and pulls them right out of that. And so you and I are left to fight the good fight as Christians, as a church. That we know that this is what Satan is going to do before he does it. And our responsibility is to counter his activity by prevailing in this fight. And so I want to give you these 4 verses out of Luke 22 that covers this. In the first verse, again, Jesus is getting ready to face his betrayal, his crucifixion at the close here. And so this is a spiritual warfare going on at this chapter. And so verse 3, we start, then entered Satan into Judas, surnamed Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. Here's our first activity of Satan. He enters into Judas Iscariot. You see people out, these guys that do these kind of shootings and activities on the news, and you look at them and you think, boy, there is a demon-possessed person right there. Activity, they're evil, the hate in them, and you don't see anything in them. In their eyes, you look and you see deadness there. And you think, boy, Satan entered into them and possessed them, keeps them. I told the kids last night down there in Washington, D.C., when I was down there a couple Saturdays ago, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, I was down there for a Family Research Council prayer meeting. And I'm walking up the street, and there's half a dozen other people walking up the street. And straight across the street, there's a guy sitting in a doorway there. And all them other people walked up. He just sat there with his head down, sitting on the stump of the doorway, and never said nothing, never did nothing. But as soon as I'm on my way to a prayer meeting, my mind's trying to pray for the events in front of us, the people there. As soon as I start walking down that street, I turned the corner and started, and I saw him, and I saw the other people in front. He jumps up, looking at me, and he's screaming, and he's hollering. I thought for sure I was getting ready. I was getting ready for him to cross the street. I mean, I'm in D.C. That's all I've heard about is the number one homicide capital of the United States. You know, I'm ready. But he never crosses the street. But he parallels me all the way up the street, screaming at me, hollering at me, unutterable things. I mean, you couldn't even understand what he was saying. It wasn't a foreign language. I know languages. He was just babbling and hollering at me. Why was he attacking me but none of the others that was walking up that street? Now, that may not be an interest to you. That may not be. Satan entered into him. He was a demon-possessed man attacking me because I was on my way to do the Lord's business. Most don't recognize that. Most don't want to believe in it. We got so many terminologies out there today of psychoanalysis and all these different kind of things that dispel the activity of Satan. But as the church, we got to read the Gospels and we read about those that were demon-possessed, and Christ recognized them and he cast them out of them. And we see it today, the activity that's going on, things that we've never heard before, things that we've never seen before in our lifetime. Why is this happening? What's going on? Satan has entered into it. Now, one of the big questions here is that a lost man is capable of doing anything. That's scary, isn't it? That if Satan enters into them, he can pull the strings, he can manipulate and control, and they can do anything. God was over there in Augusta. I was sitting there, and I've been out of that area, that church, for a year, and one of the elderly ladies that was in that church, her husband, almost a year ago, I had done his funeral, and so she was a widow there living by herself, and she had a son that was there in Romney, but not with her. And she, good heart, open up her doors, bring people in the neighborhood, help them out, give them some money for, cutting the yard, raking leaves, whatever. Just good-hearted person, but love the Lord. Love the Lord. And I'm sitting there and I'm going down through the news headlines and that, and I read. The first thing I noticed was the road. The road of this a woman was murdered and killed. And I automatically picked up on that, and I saw the age of the woman, and Georgie was sitting there beside me, and I said, that better not be Mrs. Crouch. And then, of course, when I got down to the name, there it was Betty Crouch. And this guy that she had been helping in the area, who struggled with drugs, he had known of her prescription drugs that were in her house, and so he'd come in there, and he had killed her and taken the prescription drugs and was riding a high when the cops finally showed up. and left in the wake devastation and horror to a little area that knows nothing of that kind of activity. But in one moment, a guy that was being befriended by her, by being taken care of by her, snapped and did some of the most evil, awful things that we don't ever want to talk about or think about. But Satan entered into people like that, and he causes some of the most ravaging, damaging evil that you and I have ever heard or known about. Now, when we know that this is what's going on, you and I ought to be in full gear, fighting the good fight of saying about our loved ones, about our neighbors, about our community, of saying, don't let Satan enter into them. Is God not more powerful than Satan? Is he not able to do abundantly above all that we could ask or think? Well, if I know that this is what Satan is going to do, he's going to enter into the mind, into the heart, into the life of someone that I care about, or enter into someone I don't even know and cause harm on those that I care about and love, then I better be at my best fighting the good fight and praying for their protection. Don't let Satan enter into them. We can pray preventative prayers before it ever happens. I had a woman one time, we pray over the schools, and the school shootings were happening, it seemed like once a week, about 2 years ago. And I remember the woman, she come into our prayer meeting, and she was crying and sobbing, and she says, "Did you see the school shooting this past week?" I said, "Yeah, I saw it." She said, "You see when it happened?" I was like, "Yeah." 2:10, 2:15 in the afternoon. She said, "That was my watch. That was my prayer time." She said, "This evil happened on my watch." She was blaming herself that she didn't fight the good fight. She didn't prevent that from Satan entering into that school student and taking a gun into the school and causing all this kind of harm. You say, is that possible? Absolutely, it's possible. We cannot deny the power of God to work miraculously in this. But you say, well, then why didn't Christ, who knows all things, stop Judas? Judas was born for this. He was the son of perdition. He was the son of the damned. He was born into this life to betray Christ. Christ knew all along that what Judas was going to do, that Satan was going to enter into. He was going to be betrayed. It had been prophetically foretold in the Old Testament he would be sold for 30 pieces of silver. All this was laid out so that redemption might come to us in the fullest measure of Christ being betrayed, crucified, and resurrected. If Judas would not have betrayed him, Christ would not have been crucified. If Christ was not crucified, there would be no resurrection, and you and I would not be sitting here worshiping the greatest name of the Son of God, Jesus Christ, today. Don't discount it for its purpose and its reason. What you and I ought to do, the activity is that when Satan enters into somebody, we have a means and an opportunity to stop it before it ever gets to the tragic events that we're reading about into today. Next verse that we have of the activity of Satan in this is in verse 31. Jesus has foretold what's going to take place. Judas has already gone out. And Jesus speaks these words, "And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan, he has desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat." Second activity of Satan, he wants to sift the saints as wheat. That's the reason that the responsibility is that if you and I both know that when we walk outside the doors of these churches, is that we have someone waiting for us, and he's not waiting there to give us good and to give us righteousness and to give us faith. He is there for our harm. Satan is waiting for us. And you and I have an opportunity and responsibility to pray one for another. Protection, deliverance. Don't let Satan have his will and way in their life. Don't let him make the next one fall. You realize is that every atrocity that ever happens in a church that has a Christian backsliding, that has a person falling into sin, that has some kind of detrimental work being done against the body, against the church, against the name of Christ, is that Satan is winning the victory by sifting them as wheat. You realize how many people, just like I said, those that when they found out about me being here, said, "Oh yeah, I used to go to that church." And I said, "Well, where do you go now?" And they said, "Nowhere." What happened to them? Satan sifted them, didn't he? How many have we watched in our lifetime that Satan has come in and sifted them? They fell out of love with the Word of God. They fell out of the church, of love with the church. They fell out of prayer. They don't talk about Him to anybody else. I tell you is that I got 4 pillars that I live by in the Christian faith. Read the Word, pray, be in church, and tell other people about Christ. And when I see people stop doing those 4 things, the first one is that they don't tell other people about Christ. Now you have 1 month into 2016. How many people have you told about Christ? How many people have you talked to about eternity? Well, I haven't done so very well on that, preacher. I know I got to do better. I better get busy about that. Then that's saying is that one of those pillars is already down. I know that most people don't read their Bibles. They don't study to show themselves approved. That one's gone. I'm glad you're here in church today, but this isn't the same amount of people that was here in church as that first Sunday that I preached here. Where are the rest of them? People start sliding out. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen to it. They don't want to be faithful. Faithfulness is not just simply an option. It's mandatory. Are we glad that Christ is not as unfaithful as we are in our unfaithfulness to the work of the kingdom? Because that's when Satan comes in, when the church is at its weakest, when the church and the soldiers of the cross are not doing all that they're supposed to be doing. Satan comes in and sifts. He sifts churches, he sifts families, he sifts souls, and that's his business. But Jesus said, I have prayed for you. Isn't that a glorious answer there? He who sits at the right hand of the Father prays for us that we would not be sifted as wheat by our enemy. You want to know why? How many times that Satan has delivered you in your lifetime? I'm telling you, I can go back and I can stand here for the rest of this afternoon into this evening of the wee hours of the morning telling you the accounts of how many times that God delivered me. And it wasn't because I was a preacher's kid. It wasn't because I was a preacher. It wasn't because I was righteous or anything else. It was because somebody was praying for my deliverance. They prayed over me. They covered me. Don't let him be sifted. It is the greatest responsibility and the opportunity that we have to know that Satan is coming against the brothers and sisters in Christ to sift them. And that's all he wants to do is to get us to fall, to cause an occasion out there in the community, because you know as well as I do, they'll talk more about a sin in the church or in a Christian than they will about the good things happening, won't they? Boy, they'll jump on that bad stuff. You want to talk about the good? Oh, they want to hear that. But you know the activity there, verse 31, is that Satan has desired to sift you. Next one is in verse 53. Now they've arrested Christ. They picked him up. Verse 52, then Jesus said unto the chief priests and the captains of the temple and the elders which were come to him, be you come out as against a thief with swords and staves? When I was daily with you in the temple, you stretched forth no hands against me, but this is your hour, and it is the power of darkness. Now I come across that verse and stopped me cold. Right there, I stopped. I'd already started marking those other verses and writing them down. But the power of darkness of that hour. I cannot help but look out here in what we're seeing today and to say, boy, if this isn't a power of darkness out across our nation today. I saw that they've got down there in our West Virginia Senate, and again, Maryland has pretty much already succeeded to it, of allowing transgenders to come into the bathrooms. Opening it up, whatever you want to do, just go do it and that. And we've got 10 major cities in West Virginia, and 6 of the 10 have already passed city ordinances saying you cannot restrict anybody from doing what they want to do. That means in a church, that means in a school, that means in a public place or anything. It is falling so fast, the power of darkness. Now you cannot tell me 5-10 years ago that you saw this. 5-10 years ago, I never would have dreamed that this would be an issue in front of us. I never dreamed that our society would look like this. Never dreamed that these atrocities happening, where we're seeing so much evil happen in so fast of a time. I mean, my golly, back there in November, December of the end of last year, I had to start writing it out here because I couldn't keep up with it. Cops being shot, drug overdoses, murder-suicides, public executions, and it was awful. It was the power of darkness at its best, and I'm looking around to the church. I'm looking around for other Christians to come join me and pray and to say, why are we letting this happen on our watch? Well, it gets personal when it's our own family. It gets personal when it's our own loved one. That's the reason that I always say is that when I look at this happening to other people, Jake was talking about the accident of that girl from up there at Mountain Ridge and the mother, and he knows the family and acquainted with all them, what's going on, and the sorrow there is to say, well, I've never had that, but I put myself in their shoes. Empathy. Just like it was mine. Just like mine. Power of darkness has come to eat up my loved ones. Come to destroy his church. Come to silence the pulpits. And anybody that takes a Bible to school or takes a Bible to work is that they're marked. Anybody that wants to go to a restaurant, bow their head in prayer, is a joke. Anybody that stands out on the street corners and hands out New Testaments or tracts or something is that they are a freak. But it's okay for all this evil to take place in our nation as it sinks them down into hell, and the church is sitting around twiddling their thumbs saying, oh, well, we've got to hope things get better. No, we've got to do something about it. We've got to understand where we're at and what's going on, and to say it's our responsibility to be engaged in this. We've got to fight the good fight. We can't afford to lose this anymore, because I'm telling you that if the Church of America doesn't stand up and fight this fight, God's going to judge this nation, and everything that we've ever known as freedom and religion and our opportunities to grow and to serve and all the advancements of technology that we've got, He's going to wipe it clean. Where much is given, much is required. And the church cannot continue to play games while He's destroying house after house after house. We know that this is the way that it's going right now. This is the hour, and the power of darkness has come. I see it in people. I see it in the way they treat each other. I see it when I go in to Walmart. I see it when I'm in the school games. I see it happen all the time in all places, and I know who's behind it. It's not because they was raised wrong. It's not because of their heredity. It's not because of their environment. It's because Satan has entered into them. It's because they're a lost man, a lost woman, a lost child, and Christ doesn't rule and reign in their life. And Satan is coming to sift them because, again, this is what he's about. Anything that's for God, he's against. Anything that's going to glorify God, he wants to destroy. And that's the reason is that this movement out there today has got its bullseye set on the church. We will demand that you follow us and that you give heed to us, and the church is going to have to make a choice here before too long. As for me and my household, we're going to serve the Lord. We're going to have to make a stand. Because they're going to dictate by law for us to put our stamp of approval on sin. And they're going to force the church to do it. And there are going to be a lot of them, like a lot of denominations already have, they're going to compromise. They're going to cut corners, and they're going to play classes with them. And they're going to give plays. But you and I cannot afford that. And you're looking at one man that's not going to let it happen. You said, well, they're going to arrest you. They're going to lock you up. It's all right. One of the greatest revivals going on in the United States right now is not in a church. And it's not in a public. It's in a prison system down in Texas and Louisiana. They've got so many people coming to Christ down there in Louisiana. Was at one time one of the worst jails, prisons of the United States. One person was stabbed or killed almost every day in that jail. And they started doing Bible studies, and they started having chapel service. Now they're winning people to Christ in the prison. Almost 3/4 of the entire prison population is Christians now. They're doing full life sentences. They can't get out. And so they appeal to go to other jails, to be transferred to other jails, to start chapel services, to start Bible studies so they can win those prisoners. They know they can't get out of the system. They know they're in jail. But while they're in jail, they're still serving Christ. That's what the church is supposed to be doing. The power of darkness has come. And people are content. And people are sinful. Satan has desired in these activities to do, and I want to give you the answer to this, of where we're supposed to be. And it's found in Luke 22, backing up now, verse 44. Jesus' great prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. Verse 43, and there appeared an angel unto him from heaven, strengthening him. Here it is. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat, as it were great drops of blood, falling down to the ground. I want to give those first two phrases to you. Being in agony. When was the last time you was in agony? Now, it might have been physical pain. Some of you, ladies, childbirth. Now, I was in agony. She having the babies. One of the things I said to her, I heard all the horror stories and that. I said, I'm just going to ask you one thing. I don't know anything about that pain or anything like that. I'm just going to say, don't embarrass me in the labor delivery room. By golly, 8 children later, she has done her best never to embarrass me. Thank you, dear. But I know she was in agony. I could watch those. I would watch that, and I would say your contractions coming, and yeah, I knew the pain was there. Men get those gallstones, 2 kidney stones, and they say, "Oh, agony, pain, physical pain." I know people that lived all their life like that, physical pain, arthritis, rheumatism, crippling, eats away at them. Physical pain. I also know people that's gone through emotional pain. Haven't been able to get over something. Scars. Emotional scars. Something didn't go right in life. It was bad circumstances, bad situations, and they never recovered from it. And they live with that. They deal with that. Spiritual scars. Agony. I trusted in God. He failed me. They say. I believed in him and he didn't come through. It's a blame God. You know, Job, the story of Job tells us and teaches us that quite often. Who took his 10 children? Who took his health? Who took his possessions? God? God allowed it. But it was Satan that did it. But Satan never gets blamed for nothing in that, does he? And being in agony. I don't know about you, but I'm in agony for our nation. I'm in agony over families today. I'm in agony over souls because I can't say what I said Tuesday to a lot of people. I had a nightmare the other morning. I don't have nightmares too often. And I think it was triggered by this funeral, but looking at loved ones. And I said to them, I cannot say to you what I said about that woman that I preached that funeral for. I'll see her again. There's not a lot of people that I can say that in confidence with. I'll see you again. Horror of that. Etched in me, agony. I woke up in horror. If I got to preach their funeral, stand over their casket and say about my loved one, I'm never going to see them again. Satan won. Claimed their soul. Sifted them. Destroyed them. They're his. They're not the Lord's. Satan wins. Being in agony. Did you read what Jesus did when he was in agony? There's 3 words. He prayed more earnestly. You can say prayers till the cows come home. Now there's an old time saying, when the cows come home. Only some of you will get that. My kids look at me. Is that a game? Cows come home. Saying prayers, which is good for a lot of people. Old Jeremiah back there, he knows, clasp his hand, drop his head when we get ready to eat. Listen to him mumble through the names. Now lay me down to sleep. Praise the Lord. I got Pappy, Mimi. He's got the names. He's learned. He's saying prayers. But that's not praying more earnestly, is it? When was the last time you prayed in anguish? And that woman I buried the other day prayed in anguish with me. Don't let them go to hell was a mother's prayer for her sons and daughters. I heard it in her voice. She clutched my hands. Feeble old woman with little strength, cancer, arthritis, yet she almost snapped my fingers. In earnest. Because of the most important thing, about the most important thing that we'll ever ask or face in this life, where are you going to spend eternity? Jesus prayed more earnestly. That's where we're supposed to be. We're facing a world out here that Satan is devouring. We've got loved ones that Satan is claiming. The church is not raising up and fighting the good fight of faith, and we're losing the battle faster than what we're supposed to be, and it's going to affect our children, it's going to affect our grandchildren, and it is on our shoulders that while we knew what he was up to, his activity, we should have been doing something about it. I'm asking you the question today. Are you? Do you see his activity? Are you fully aware of what's going on? And are you ready to fight the good fight of faith? Say, not on my watch. Not my loved ones. Not my community. Kids were talking the other day about Sonic, the restaurant Sonic. They got those drive-ups and they come out there in the rollerblades and serve you there. And we was laughing because to them, that's unique. But how many of us remember here Chat and Chew? Oh, that was the biggest treat for them to come out there and put that on the car window. Well, good old days, right? When things were a little bit better. They weren't as easy. More people were in church. More things were right than wrong. Remember the day? The power of darkness of this hour has come. You and I have the power who sits above all, and he's saying to us, when you get in agony, because of what you see happening, you'll pray more earnestly. That's not happening yet, but it better happen soon. Or we can just claim it as a loss and a defeat that'll cost too many souls in eternity. And I'm not willing to do that. And I want to ask you, are you fighting a good fight, and are you willing? We go to our invitation time now. I haven't really followed through in these things, invitation yet. I've just kind of closed in prayer with you. I'm going to play on the piano here. I'm not asking you to sing right now.